Hey guys, it's Heyde, and today I'm going to be taking a look at Stretsoff Sampling's Balkan Ethnic VST Orchestra. This is probably one of the most elaborate VST packs that I've ever worked with. It has a ton of different sounds in it, ranging from ethnic folk instruments to more orchestral instruments, percussion. It has different mic positionings. It has legato sampling in a lot of these instruments, and overall just a really inspiring and varied tool for composers looking to integrate some more ethnic sounds into their music. So before I actually break down this cue that I wrote called Street Market Chase, I wanted to just open up the interface so you can see kind of what it looks like and all the different sounds it has. So when you open up the interface here, you're going to get 5 different folders. We have band, choir, ethnic, pads, and percussion. Under band, you're going to find things like accordions, various brass, you're going to find bass, some guitars, that sort of thing. The choir is specifically a female Balkan choir, and it sounds fantastic. They have different legato patches, and they have syllables both for short and long sounds. The ethnic folder is probably my favorite, and it has lots of different soloistic instruments. You'll have both the legatos, which have lots of ornamentation built in to give you that really authentic ethnic sound, and you also have a lot of pre-recorded audio of various soloing. You can interchange between the two depending on what you're looking for. Then we have one patch of pads, which is very nice because if you want to experiment with different sounds, you don't have to load different patches. They probably have somewhere between 15 to 20 pads, if I remember correctly. And then we also have, in similar fashion, one patch for percussion with lots of different options within there. We have options for the pitch. We can change the pitch of each instrument, the transients. We have different zones that we can assign, which is really useful. And with all of these instruments, we're going to have the option to do both close and distant miking. That is extremely useful if you want to have these instruments sound a little bit farther in your mix or a little bit closer. You can sort of play with them. And the reverb built into these patches sounds really, really great. There are other videos where you can see an extensive breakdown and demonstration of each of these instruments. So if you're interested in that, I'll link it below so you can check it out. But what I wanted to do for this video was see how I integrated them into my own music, into this piece, and talk about some of my favorite sounds that I discovered. So I'm going to play the very beginning of this piece and talk about the different instruments that are going on. All right, let's just start with that for now. So we have a pad that was used from the Balkan Ethnic Orchestra, and I actually bounced this out just to make it a little bit easier to work with. So I'll play that on its own. All I've done to affect this pad is remove some of the low end. Really a lot of nice things happening in there. Then we also have these female vocals. These are 3 legato patches singing to create kind of these inverted chords. Really beautiful sounding. It's not too prominent in this section, but later. I love their vibrato patches. It just has this really intense vibrato that really adds a lot of drama to sections. I'll play that over here. Really nice sounding. Then we also have one of my other favorite patches, the Tambura Tremolo. Kind of reminds me of a mandolin in Italian music. So that continues, and I have that volume automated just to create kind of some intensity. We have the Gaida, which is kind of like, it sounds like maybe a Balkan bagpipe of some kind. Really like that. It has a nice drone underneath, which helps kind of just enhance that pad. Now, some of that ornamentation is built into the instrument. So if you'll see, I'll load this up. If I just were to play some of this sound, you're going to hear ornamentation actually built into the instrument. And I just personally love that because I think you lose some of the realism when you're actually trying to play some of this ornamentation in, just because of the way that samples work. So by pre-recording this ornamentation, number one, it makes it more authentic because we have some traditional players playing these instruments as they're intended, and we get more realistic sounding samples. And then the other final instrument we have in this section is going to be the kaval, which is kind of like almost like a native flute. I also noticed that their pitch bends are really, really nice in just about all their VSTs that they have here. All right, moving right along. Okay, so that's a longer chunk, but I just wanted to address a bunch of different sounds happening in here. Also, I should mention there's only 3 tracks here that are not from the Balkan VST Orchestra, which really just goes to show you how many sounds they've actually packed into this thing. So we had the tremolo before, now we actually have it playing the main kind of melody or riff here. Etc. Then we introduce some of the percussion that's in this pack. We have some percussion here, solo tupan, and I hope I'm pronouncing all the names of these right. And we also have, I just called them clacks, but they look like they're called klepalo. Really nice sounds. And I believe I adjusted, yes, I did. I adjusted the pitch of the solo tupan here because I wanted it to sound a little bit boomier. So here's the original pitch. And here is lowered. I love that you're able to play with that. I also reduced the transient sustain so that it doesn't last quite as long, so we don't get a lot of boom, we just kind of get the initial hit. So these are playing along with the clacks, which sounds like this. Okay. Then we introduce the folk guitar, which is also playing with the double bass from the band. And these are kind of low end, playing this riff actually in 7/8 against this kind of 3/4. Okay, with a little bit of improv from the kaval again, and the gaida. Then we introduce the accordion, which is taking the lead alongside the tambura. Okay, really nice sounding. And for the accordion, as well as I believe the guitar and several other instruments, you have the option between sustains and staccato patches. Then to build the climax, I already showed you the vocals before, but we also introduced these gadulkas. They're like the string section of the Balkan Orchestra, but they have a little bit more of a kind of nasally, aggressive sound, which I really, really liked here. Just to really build some impact for that section. And that's it for that section, so let's move right along. Okay, want to address that section before we get to the grand finale of the piece. So we have the kadokas and the female vocals continuing to create that kind of pad underneath. We also introduced two clarinets, the clarinet on the left and clarinet right. I really like stereo panning things. And these sound really nice. I really like their kind of folky sound. That kind of reminds me of some Jewish music, actually. I love the vibrato on them. I think it sounds really nice. Keep an ear out for them later in the piece when they're going to kind of echo the melody that happened over with the accordion. The percussion kind of continues, although it tapers off a little bit here because I wanted to give some room for our folk brass instruments here. And now these are really nice, particularly the staccato patches on the tuba, trombone, and the euphonium. I thought it sounded really kind of brassy, in your face, nice and aggressive. Especially in the low end. So I doubled those with the guitar once again and the bass. You'll notice I tried to have a lot of these instruments kind of having certain roles, which they maintain through the piece. Even though there's a lot of tracks on this, I think it's important to think of arrangements in terms of, how am I going to keep each part interesting, but also how am I going to be consistent to the instrumentation that I establish in the piece. So there are 27 tracks here, but a lot of the instruments are kind of having similar sort of established roles throughout, whether it's kind of keeping a certain riff or doubling with another instrument, just to be consistent with itself as a piece. So here is the bass, the guitar, the tuba, trombone, euphonium, all together playing this big riff. And I'm going to introduce the percussion in so you can hear how that really kind of accents the line. Yeah, the new introduction in the percussion section is these tarambucas, which I just really like. I find them really kind of nice piercing mid-end in the way that they should be. Kind of nice to offset the high-pitched clacks and the low-pitched percussion. So let's play the very tail end of this, and then we'll get into the finale. Before we launch into the very ending of the piece, this is kind of like an opportunity for a little percussion solo here. So I introduced the Balkan Band, which was not introduced before. It's kind of like the basic orchestral percussion instruments you'll get from certain libraries like Contact or East West. I really like how many instruments are in this. It makes it really easy to work with. So I'll just solo that out and then add these instruments so you can hear them all in context. Really nice. And I played with distance a little bit, making some of those instruments a little bit forward in the mix and back. And I did that, like I said, using the close and distant miking here, which is really helpful because you can't really get this sound authentically any other way. You could introduce reverbs and things like that, but it's still going to sound like it was mic'd close. So I love that they introduced this kind of dual miking. We also have accordion kind of making its way back in. We have the same instrumentation before of the brass, the guitar, and the bass carrying that riff, but really leaving a lot of room for this percussion. And then, like I said, we have the clarinets and the tambura that are echoing the melody that came from earlier that was played by accordion. So for this final section, I just decided to let loose, make this kind of like an oompa thing. Again, I was kind of thinking of klezmer music a little bit. So I wanted to have the whole feeling like it was about to like explode as a piece. And one of the ways that I did that was actually introducing a very slight tempo acceleration. So from 150 to 157 by the time it's done. So you should get the feeling that like the thing is about to collapse on itself. And the other way I did that was we had this space between the bass instruments. We've had a lot of kind of riffy stuff, so I thought it'd be fun just to have them finally let loose in this kind of like boom-cha, 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 just like an oompa sort of thing. Then we also reintroduced the Tambura Tremolos, along with female vocals and the gadolka, just to kind of get a little line in between. That's nice. And we closed out the piece at the end of all this with a big hit from the percussion and the gadulkas playing just one big staccato note. So I'll just play that little ending so you can hear it. Beautiful. And that's how I used the VSTs from this pack. I really, really enjoyed working with this. It has so many fun, inspiring sounds. I love that it's kind of it is truly an ethnic alternative to the Western orchestra. It's nice to have instruments, both from the standard orchestra, but played with the authenticity of Balkan music, and also to have those other options of instruments that we don't traditionally use in our orchestra. It blends really well with other VSTs. I've already started to use this orchestra in some of my other cues. They have an excellent sounding duduk that I actually didn't use in this, but it really sounds fantastic. You can find demos on their site. And it's a really, really fun VST. I found it very inspiring, very easy to create music, and lots of different options. So I highly recommend it. If you have questions for me about this VST or about the composition itself, just let me know in the comments and I'll get back to you. Otherwise, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this little walkthrough of Stretsov Sampling's Balkan Ethnic Orchestra, and I will see you in the next video.